Hey everyone, I got a really exciting show for you today. I have a friend and a well-known published author who's got so much other stuff going on. This may be a long interview. So I have Ryan Pineda with me today. How you doing this morning, Ryan?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Why don't we just jump in? And I came across you when I encountered your book, which I think is fantastic. So why don't we start there? Then we'll get into kind of the education, and then more importantly, what you're doing in the business. Because what you have going on in the business is what we all shoot for. But I think we need to start with crawling, and maybe that's your book for most folks to really understand what it is, why they need to read it. So
Uh,
we'll start there.
Perfect. Yeah. The book is great. It's called Flip Your Future. I've got it right behind me. And, really it's kind of a quick step-by-step process on how you can start flipping houses. It doesn't really matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter your experience. Like, I tried to make it so simple, that anyone can do it. And, I kind of prided myself when I wrote it that, it's kind of a small book. If you look, it's tiny. And people read it in a couple hours and they're flipping a house. So I'm really happy about that, because there's a lot of, books out there that are very information heavy, but people get lost in the information because there's so much. And so I kind of wanted to take that mentality of like, hey, this is just worry about these things. Yeah, you could do a bunch of other stuff, but just do this.
Yeah. And that's kind of what attracted me to reach out to you, right? I reached out cold. You didn't know me from Adam. It's because when I read your book, it was very similar to what I tried to do with the whole one rental at a time for busy employees, was just break it down, make it simple, right? Don't try to overcomplicate it to make it seem like we're some kind of expert and you need a PhD in flipping houses before you can get going.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed by that. I'm always curious, how long did it take you to write? And just because mine took forever. So I'm just curious. Right.
It's funny, man, because it really didn't take me long to write it. Like, I'll give you the example. This is my 10th year in real estate, and I didn't start flipping houses until 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was successful doing big things. And last year, I had this thought like, hey, I want to write a book. It'd be cool. And then I had like this self-doubt, like, well, what if I waste my time? What if nobody reads it? It's going to be kind of embarrassing, to spend all this time and nothing happens. And I just was like, I don't know if I want to do it. And long story short, I went to actually Grant Cardone's 10X last year, not this year. I know this one was just last weekend.
Yeah.
And, I watched Russell Brunson take the stage, and he was talking about, getting like your message out there and getting your platform and, being an expert. Like, everybody's an expert on something, whether you know it or not. And, he just really convinced me like, yo, just do it and, see what happens. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. So right after that event, I started making my outline, and I finished my outline within like a day. I was like, all right, this is kind of how the chapter should go. This is what I think needs to be in it, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just start writing. And I didn't obviously have any writing experience. I graduated college, but that was about it. And I was like, all right. So I just started writing, and within a month I had finished the book. And I was like, wow, this is a good book. And I'm like, let's go publish it. And it wasn't that simple.
No, it's not that simple.
Yeah, I was like, we got the book, like, let's go. And the editing and production and everything took probably another 4 months before, it was actually out there. And, like, it's all these things you don't even realize with like picking a cover, or picking, all the bullet points and all the stuff you're going to put on Amazon. And, then they got to edit the book, and then you get it back and you re-edit it, and then you send it back, and it just keeps going back and forth. And man, it took a long time. And then, the initial writing of it was the easiest part.
No question. Yeah, the writing of the book was easy. It was that 4 months of back and forth, multiple edit, pick a cover, do the spine. I mean, it was a lot more intense than I expected. So,
and what's funny is when I first decided to write a book, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna write 3. Like, I got 3 really good book ideas, and I did the one. I was like, I'm gonna just 3. So yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Well, let's break open the book a little bit and sort of highlight for folks what's in it. Maybe give them the rough outline of what they could expect if they ordered it. Because people are always wondering, what's in it, even if it's a $10 book, what's in it. So why don't you highlight for them what you put in there for them?
Yeah. So, the beginning of the book is kind of my story, how I got into real estate, what prompted me to start flipping houses. And, I could go into depth about my story. It's a pretty good story. But, after that, I just talk about all the steps that, I use to flip a house. I mean, I'm not hiding anything. I know that there's a lot of people who, sell education, which I do. And, they want to just kind of give a teaser. And then it's like, hey, all right, buy my course and then you'll get the full plate. Well, it's like, no, I'm going to actually give them everything they need to buy or, to succeed. And there's a ton of people who have flipped a house just based on buying a little $10 book.
Right.
And, the return on that's ridiculous. But, you get all the steps in a very detailed way that, makes sense. So it's like, hey, don't even try and go to this next chapter until you figure out this chapter.
Right. Yeah, that's what I saw, and it was very well done. So let's establish you as that expert, and to do that, let's start with that first flip. Do you remember that first flip?
Oh yeah, man, vividly. So I got started. I'll start from the beginning. I was a baseball player growing up, and that was my passion. That was all I did, and I was fortunate enough to get drafted when I was 21 by the Oakland A's. And, I was a late round draft pick, so I didn't get a lot of money to sign, not like these guys who get millions. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just worry about this, but I need an off-season job because, in the minor leagues, we only make like $1,200 a month, and that's only while we play. So it's like you make $6,000 a year. So I needed a job, and I got licensed to be a realtor, and I did that for, that first year. I was 21 years old. It was 2010. Prices were at rock bottom. Even if you sold a home, you didn't make much because, prices were so cheap and nobody could qualify for a loan. So it was like, dude, it was like the worst time ever to be an agent. I was like, this sucks. But, I was making money and making it happen. Not like successful by any means, but just enough to get by.
Yeah.
And I realized after a couple of years of playing baseball and then being a realtor, I was like, this sucks. Like, I do not want to be a realtor. And I started doing other things to make money. I started flipping couches, and that was like my big thing. I was the king of Craigslist. Like, I would buy a couch, fix it up, put it back on Craigslist for $200 more and make $200 every single day. And so I made pretty decent money flipping couches. And, baseball was always the priority. So I didn't really mind it. I was like, hey, you know what? This is just for the time being. I'm going to get to the big leagues. And this is, that's where I'm going to make my money. That didn't happen. And as my career, started going longer and longer, the older you get, the less likely it is to do anything in sports. So I started to have that realization that like, hey, the big leagues aren't happening and I don't want to flip couches my whole life. That sucks. And I came across an infomercial during my wife and I's 1-year anniversary. And it was like, hey, start flipping houses, no money down, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I just, you hear these things all the time. I was like, that's a scam, whatever. And I kind of just felt God like calling me to like look more into it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look into this. So I Googled it and, I Googled, yada, yada, yada scam. And Bigger Pockets ended up coming up. And I was like, what the heck is Bigger Pockets? Like, is this a scam? Like, I don't know. And I looked up Bigger Pockets, got on the forums, and I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And I bought a couple of their books and started reading them during the trip. And I was like, man, this is like, okay, I think I can do this. And I had my like confirmation moment on the flight home. Like I was randomly sitting next to this guy and, because my wife and I didn't have seats together. I was too cheap to like, pay the upgrade. And, I ended up talking to this guy and he's like, hey man, I don't know why, but I kind of feel like God's telling me to tell you this, but I'm in real estate and I flip houses. And I was like, what?
No.
And we started talking and he was telling me about subject twos and owner finance and all this stuff. And I had no idea what that was. Like, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, how do you buy a house without paying the mortgage? And he told me all this stuff that I had no idea what it was, even being a realtor. Cause you don't you know, when you're a realtor, they don't teach you these things.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want you doing these kind of gray area deals. And so I get home and I'm like, I'm all in. You know, I had 10 grand at the time. I'd saved up good money. You know, my wife was in college and I was just flipping couches.
Yeah.
And so I said, all right, I'm buying a house. So I went and got pre-approved with a hard money lender, ended up, you know, finding a deal, and I still didn't have enough money. You know, I needed to get a down payment. So I maxed out all my credit cards, and it was about 50 grand.
Oof.
And, you know, I had built up great credit. You know, I had a little bit of money in the bank, but, you know, not enough. So I maxed them all out for cash. And I found the deal, bought it, put 20% down, and I was like, all right, we're doing this.
Yeah,
I'm like in. 2 weeks late. Yeah, I'm in. Like, you know, let's do this. I'm tired of flipping couches. And so 2 weeks later, I found another deal, and I still had a little bit of money left from the credit cards. I was like, you know what? I might as well just go all in. Like, who cares?
Chips in the center of the table. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pot committed for all you poker guys.
Yeah.
And so I went all in, and luckily, you know, 2 months later, I sold one of them, made a 25 grand profit. Nice. You know, a couple months later, sold the other one, made like 15. And I was like, dang, dude, this is crazy. You know, I just made like a year's salary for people like that quickly. And I ended up just rolling it over. You know, I kept maxing out my credit cards, kept, you know, saving the profit. I didn't, you know, go buy a crazy car, nothing. You know, I just kept reinvesting it. And, you know, where we're at today, you know, just I went from buying 5 houses that first year to 20 the next, then, you know, a little over 50 the next. And then last year we bought about 140. So
wow, things
have been scaling quickly.
That's great. I always try to summarize what you know my interviewees go through, and I think there's a couple of things that are real true nuggets. First, you did your research, right? You got an interest, you got an itch, you went out and scratched it, you figured out it was real. You know, Bigger Pockets was a source for you, at least in the beginning. Second, you executed, you took work, right? You didn't get stuck in analysis paralysis. You didn't get stuck in evaluating areas and all that. You're like, I'm in, I'm going, found something, let's go. You know, you were all in, pot committed, right? Use your phrase. You went for it, right? And probably not knowing with certainty. You believed, but you were probably not certain, if that makes sense.
I probably had a little too much confidence. Like I was too stupid, like to like realize like exactly what I was doing. You know, I was like, "This is gonna work." There's no way
it's gonna work. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. So, and then the other thing that I want to make sure we highlight, because I see this mistake a lot, is you made your profit, which is great, but most importantly, you did not go out and buy stupid toys. Right? Yep. I have seen people. I saw a lot of people, especially in 2008, right, which is just before you started. Frankly, get too cocky. In the real estate business will kick your ass if you get cocky and arrogant, you know, which may be happening now to some people watching this, right? They've been in a buyer's market a seller's market for 5 years. And I think the market's rolled over, certainly above the median, and it's going to catch some by surprise. And if you're too arrogant and you think you've got the Midas touch, oof, market's going to spank you. So, you know, I like people who play good defense and go after it. And then your growth, right? 5, 20, 50, 140. That's so impressive. Do you know what your goal is for this year? Have you thought about it?
You know, it's interesting, right? Because I've been, you know, like basically tripling every year. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do 450 flips. I don't want to do that. Yeah. And, you know, things are different, right? We're in a different climate at this point, right? Like you mentioned, things are starting to shift a little bit. And so I'm a little more cautious than I was in the past. Whereas, you know, you saw, I'm just taking risk and I'm like, hey, I got nothing to lose.
Right.
Now that I've built up some wealth and, you know, some different things, it's like, all right, now it's time to pull some chips back and figure out like, hey, what's the best thing? So honestly, this year, I'm probably going to do around the same amount of flips. And any excess deals we get, I'll probably just wholesale.
Yeah. Again, right, just two guys talking. I think the market has clearly shifted, certainly above the median. Now the question is, how long and how deep does this go? So pulling chips off the table, frankly, stacking some cash, because again, I've been doing this for 15 years, rode the wave up, which is where we are now, just, decades apart. I
Yep.
don't expect an '08 crash. Let's be clear there, or 10 or whatever year you want to put on it. But
Yep.
it's going to get slow. You're going to have price drops and inventory is going to sit, and if you're doing this for 5 years, you don't know that market. So it can surprise you. So very wise move on your part. Good job.
Well, I remember back, I wasn't investing back in '08 or whatever. I just remember when I was an agent back in 2010, just how much inventory there was and like how hard it was to like find buyers and sell a home. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't want to be held, left holding a bunch of stuff at that. But what I will say is, as a flipper, you can still make money in that market. You just have to buy at a deeper discount.
Exactly. I get asked all the time, what do you, so, people call me Zuber, what are you doing now? Well, first off, when the market changes and people get scared because of all these CNBC and Wall Street Journal headlines, I get greedy, right? I will probably do more deals this year, but my offer prices start at least 10% below what they were last year. Yeah. And of course I add padding, and my model is buy and hold. So, I can out hold a bad market, but I'm going to buy a lot of cash flow rentals this year.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Don't, if you've been, I'm going to get into real estate during the buyer's market. And then, you see one headline in CNBC and you're like, I'm out. You're like, you're just not paying attention. Go do something else, right? This is the time to get greedy, not, 2 years ago.
Well, and I know too, back in 2010 when I started, there was only a couple guys with money, and oh my gosh, they just cleaned house. Like, they bought all these rentals, and then I'm like seeing them sell them now.
Yes,
and I'm like, dude, you bought these for 50 grand and they're worth 200. That is insane, man.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys.
You got 50 of them. Yeah, like, dude. So I mean, it really just is like, hey, you got to figure out how to get prepared for it. You got to get the cash. You've got to find the money partners. You know. Whatever.
Awesome. You're gonna continue to do great things. So I am curious. I always ask when people have an impressive operation like yours of 140 flips a year, how big is your team? Right. That let's start with work for you, and then you probably have contractors and 1099s outside that. But Ryan, in your team, in your company, how big is that?
So I really have 3 companies, right? I have the house flipping company. I've got the wholesaling company, and then I have a real estate brokerage I own.
Okay.
So, on the house flipping side, I have 2 project managers. So I think right now we've got about 60 something properties that I own that we're in some process of the flip. Either they're being rehab, they're on market, they're in escrow, whatever.
Yep.
So the project managers, they get them to market, they do their thing. I don't ever see properties anymore. These guys check out all the properties that, I'm going to buy, and they see them through till the end. So they're great. I also have a guy, I don't even know what I would call his title. He's basically a property checker. Yeah. And so he's checking the finished properties, he checks them once a week, make sure everything's cool, vandalism and all that. Vandalism happens literally like every day. And I have an assistant who's my sister, and she handles basically everything I don't want to do. And she, she can sign for me. So she does all my signings. She does, EMD. She does data stuff. She's a jack of all trades. So she's been awesome. And, on the flipping side, that's really the team that gets houses complete. Like, it's not like this big giant team. Yeah. As far as the acquisition side goes, that's a whole different aspect of it. I think really my job at this point is just being an acquisitions manager. Like, I get all these deals sent to me, and I just have to decide if I want to buy them or not. Exactly. And if I say yes, then it's just a matter of, okay, now that I've said yes, what lender am I going to use to fund this? And, just put it through the system. So that's really my job at this point. As far as the wholesaling side goes, I mean, I consider that to be totally different. Like, I buy from a ton of wholesalers. We get a ton of deals off the MLS. I've got 2 in-house acquisitions managers, and so they handle all our direct marketing stuff. They're handling lead follow-ups. They're handling making offers. They're handling, training our cold callers. I mean, they do all this stuff. And so if we do buy it, then, great, we'll buy it and it just goes through the process. Yep. Or if we wholesale it, then, they go find the end buyer and take care of it. And, that's what the wholesaling side looks like. It's pretty small too. And then the brokerage, we just started the brokerage last year. So we had our first full year. We've already got almost 40 agents. So the brokerage is growing extremely quickly too. In fact, we've already got to get a new office. Like I didn't expect it to grow that quickly, but people are joining the movement, and it's awesome. So, the brokerage, the agents, obviously they all can do whatever they want. And I've got a few agents who they really love the investing side. And so they work for me in some capacity, like finding deals on the MLS, maybe door knocking. So there's a bunch of stuff that like, hey, if you want to join the brokerage, you want to get in the investing side, we'll find a role for you.
Right. That's awesome. So I guess there's a couple of things again that sort of peel back. First and foremost, running a shop that does 140 flips a year is probably smaller team-wise than most people think, right? Yeah. Most people probably think there's, 30 people or something that makes that go. And the reason you could do that with such a small team is more importantly, the systems and processes you put in place, right? You have essentially one choke point, which is you to make the financial decision to buy, right?
Correct.
And other than that, you have essentially outsourced everything, including signings to your sister, which I think is particularly awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which keeps you out of your business. So you can be the rainmaker and the leader and just do what you do. I think it's very impressive. I am curious, since that's where did it go from when you went 5 to 20? Because I think most people watching my show can fathom doing 5 a year.
Yeah.
And they probably, if they squeezed real hard, can think about 20. Most of them can't think about 50 or 140. So talk about the transition from 5 to 20, if you don't mind.
So, when I started out with 5, obviously it was just me, right?
Yep.
You can't afford staff.
And that's okay, right? It's totally okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And even with 20, it was just me. You can do it by yourself. You can go check these properties, pay the contractors, get deals, there's enough time in the day to do it all by yourself.
Yes.
20 is not that difficult. Once I started getting to 50, that was when I hired out. My very first hire was who's now my broker at the brokerage, but I hired him to do basically my property checker, because I realized quickly that going to all these properties was the most time consuming thing there was.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, you know what? You need to manage all these projects. You need to check on the properties. If you can do all that, just let me sit at the desk and, find deals and find money and, find all those other things. Then I'll have more freed up time. So my first hire, if I was somebody, would be, a project manager, really.
Yeah. Somebody
that can go do all that.
Yeah. Because what you need to realize is, so first off, I just want to reiterate, you can do 5 all by yourself. You can do 20 all by yourself. But yeah, if you're going to start to get to, 4 a month, which would be 48, right? You're going to have to need someone. And I would totally agree. A project manager is the right answer, because you need to realize that you have a core competency in something that you have to own. And that is making financial decisions, driving to properties, taking pictures, doing all that nonsense and double checking GCs. That's important work. I'm not saying it's not, but it is work you hire out. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I was listing all my own properties too,
wow.
And that was a time consumer. And I had learned too. I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. And, I stopped listing my own properties, even though I was licensed. And
sure. Yeah.
Him and I did 50 just with the two of us. So you don't need to have this giant team to do a lot of properties.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think fundamentally doing 4 probably changes most of people's lives watching this. Right. 4.
Oh yeah. You can make a lot of money doing 50.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is pretty awesome. So I guess one thing I haven't asked is, it seems like you do all of this in one market, or is that a bad assumption?
Yeah. I would say 98% of these are in Vegas.
Yeah.
I've got some rentals and I do some flips in Big Bear, California.
Oh, okay.
Which, I love the Airbnb market out there. And
yeah, that makes sense.
There's a lot less competition, but I just don't really focus on it. And it's a great market. But pretty much all of it's in Vegas.
Yeah. And again, I think that's important, because I'm starting to hear from some people who have been wildly successful the last 5 years being wholesalers and buying or flippers, that frankly crushed some market, whether it's Vegas or, wherever, right? They're going on across the country.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous when I hear some of them going, you know what, I'm going to go to Denver and they're in Miami,
Yeah.
or they're in
Yep.
Denver and they're going to go to Detroit. I just think that's risky, because if the market's truly changing and you're going to enter a market where, frankly, there is a big boy there, probably several, it's probably arrogant to think that you could come in as an unknown and be as successful in a secondary market. Does that kind of feel like the right thing?
Yeah, I think as a flipper, it is most definitely something I wouldn't personally. I'm not going to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, granted, if you're a wholesaler, I think it's pretty easy to be virtual anywhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys who I know are crushing it virtually.
Yep.
And but as a flipper with all the moving pieces, it ain't something I would ever do.
Yeah, it's the flipping one that I was really referring to. Yeah, because wholesaling you do anywhere. It's the flipping. It's just I mean, anytime you got to get on an airplane that's 2 or 3 hours away and they're like 3 a day, and it just screams risk to me. And I'll just be honest, it screams arrogance. It's like, it would be like somebody watching this in Miami going, I'm going to flip in Vegas, and you're just going to freaking eat their lunch, right?
Oh yeah.
They don't know the area. It's silly. Anyways, okay.
Yep.
So I think we've done a great job sort of summarizing what you are. Clearly an expert. Clearly people have got to get your book if they have any interest in flipping. Because again, if you could do 4 a year or 5 a year, your life changes. Right?
Oh yeah.
And
making more than you're probably making now.
Yeah. So, get the book, because the systems are outlined, the process, it's all there. It's easy. It's a couple-hour read. Go for it. But let's talk about where you're taking all of this, right? Because this work, this book, this has led to education. So let's talk about the education side. What do you do there, and how can people learn more?
So, I've got a few different ways I do education now. I realize that people learn in different ways, right? For me personally, when I started, I read a book and I listened to a podcast and I was ready.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't have to spend a lot of money. Now, if I would have spent money earlier, I could have probably avoided a lot of mistakes, but I just didn't have it.
Yep.
So I wanted to create something that was accessible. Anybody can get it, which is the book. Anybody can buy a book. But I also realized that there are people who need other types of training. And so, I created an online course, and that's like 9 hours of videos. I think there's over 70 of them. It's got all my spreadsheets, my contracts, everything you could imagine that I use in my business today is in that course. And so for people who, want, more than just a book, maybe they need the video training, maybe they need all obviously they need the contracts and all that stuff, but, the course is awesome. So a lot of people who do that, they have success. The other thing I did was last year I ran my very first, I call it mastermind. And so I limited it to 10 people, had them all come to my office, and we just spent a full day just going deep into everything. And we went specifically into every person's business. And I kind of decided I wanted to do it like that because I'm more of a personal guy. I could have, charged less and just filled out a room if I wanted to. But I wanted to really get to know 10 people.
Yeah.
Help them out the way I could. So that was a great success. I'll probably do a couple of those this year. I had one I was going to do in March, but then my son was born. He was born 2 months early. So I was like, oh man, all right,
time out.
We'll do that later. I'm not worried about that right now. I've got that. And then my thing is I've got so many things going on. I personally don't want to mentor you.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time for it. So that's why I've created these things one day, cool, I'll do it. Online course, it doesn't take any of my time. Great. You got all the tools, but people ask do you got personal mentorship and this and that? I'm like, no.
Nope. Out. Yeah. I'm with you.
You couldn't pay me enough because I have too many things going on. And that being said, I have had people who were like, well, let us, we want to just do a one-on-one one day. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. One day, but no strings attached. I'm not going to babysit you for a year.
Yeah.
So we've done that. And, it's cool to see all these people who, have gone through either the book or the course and the mastermind or one-on-one, just to see their success. And so
it's fun.
I'm excited about that. For anybody who's interested, they just have to go to ryanpineda.com, and that has everything I've got.
Very, very cool. Well, first I want to ask about your son, right? 2 months early. I've seen
Yeah.
pictures on Facebook. He's healthy.
He's healthy. Yep. Man, I was scared, dude, because that's my first kid, and my wife wasn't feeling good, and we just went to the hospital. She wasn't feeling good, and they're like, okay, she's going into labor. I was like, what? How? He's not due for 2 months, and they're like, we're gonna try and slow her down, and maybe try and keep him in there for a couple more weeks. I was like, okay, like, all right, that's cool. And then like 30 minutes later, they're like, yeah, he's probably coming like today or tomorrow. I was like, what? And I was like, what is going on here? And they're like, yeah. And like 30 minutes later, like, he's definitely coming today. I was like, dude, I thought I was just like coming in here for a routine checkup. And, but God has different plans, and luckily he's healthy. He's still in the NICU. He's been there for a couple weeks, and he'll probably still be there for a couple weeks after this. But, he's about as healthy as they get being so early.
Yeah, I was 6 weeks early.
Okay.
And in the NICU and jaundice and all of that stuff. Again, don't remember this. I've been told by my mother a gazillion times.
How long were you there for?
I was there 12 days. I was there 12 days.
Yep.
12 full days. 12 nights, I guess. So 13 days, 12 nights. I guess my mom counted nights, and she never left, right? I hear about it all the time. So that's why she always gets great Mother's Day presents.
I know. I respect my mom a lot more now. I'm like, okay.
No, I get it, Mom.
I know what you're going through now.
Well, I just wanted to check on your son, because that was I just had to.
I appreciate that.
But as far as your courses go, so it's just your website? Are they on like Teachable or any of, is it?
Yeah, it's just my developer created a really cool website that, everything's through the website. So, you can buy it through there. And then once you buy it, it just accesses it through the website. And cool. It's laid out really cool. And if anyone has questions about it, I'm super accessible. You can send me a Facebook message or an Instagram message, and I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Very, very cool. Well, let's get into the final kind of piece of this interview, and that's, where are you taking this in 3 to 5 years? Have you sort of thought about what this means to you, and what do you be doing?
Man, so I've never been one to really think like super far in advance. Even throughout this whole process, right? If you'd have told me 4 years ago when I first started this, I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I'd been like, no way.
You're
like,
crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm still flipping couches, like whatever. And, now I look at it and people are like, well, you got to get prepared. You got to do this. And, I read this book called Traction. I'm sure maybe you've read it. And they make you do that, right? They make you get a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year, a 10-year goal. And, I'm going through it and stuff. And I'm like, this just isn't me. Like I got here by just, worrying about the day and maybe like the year max. But, like I'm not thinking about 5 years. So, I mean, to be honest, I really have no idea what's going to happen. Everything is just part of God's timing and God's plan. And so it's like, just with the, the brokerage, I'm kind of kicking myself because, we signed a 3-year lease, and like within a year we already, outgrew it. I'm like, man, this is why, like, I don't like planning so far in advance. And so, yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I would anticipate that we'll keep flipping. I would anticipate, the market's going to have that shift at some point. I would anticipate that my brokerage will keep growing, and, we'll get a new office. But as far as like education and stuff goes, if I don't even know what you would call it, my personal brand grows, and, maybe I'm on the big stage doing something, that's cool. I'm down with that. But it's not something I'm like trying to push for, whatever happens.
Yeah. I think where you're at is your business is flipping, right? That's your core, right? That's always going to be something you do, and you'll be doing that for a long time. And then all the other stuff are just extras, because you can help. You can basically, the courses are, okay, I'll go record, I'll go create material, I'll go record 9 hours of content, and then I'm out, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it repeats. If you want it, it's here. You're very honest and direct. And, the book was written to help people. If they get started with the book, awesome. If they want more, awesome, right? Which is a great approach. The other thing I think that goes unsaid is you're going to stay probably focused on Vegas, right? You don't
Yep.
see going to other markets. I am
Yep.
curious, just because we communicated on this, I think via one of our messages, is you're adding rentals for the first time to your personal portfolio. Is that true?
Yeah. So when I first started flipping, right, you get on bigger pockets and everyone's like, buy rentals, passive income, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I don't have any money. Like,
Yes, sir. I need some chunk money, people. What are you talking about these
yeah.
days?
Yeah. Like, I'm like, if I, go put 20 grand down, I can't flip the house. I need that money to flip the house. And so I didn't buy any rentals for my first couple of years because I literally used every single dollar I had
Yeah.
towards, building my
It
flip
was
business.
it was gas for the machine, right? Just kept going.
Yeah. So to me, I'm like, well, why am I going to put 20 grand and hold it? And I'm going to make a couple $100 a month when I can go make 20 grand
Yes.
flipping it. So I wanted to keep the money movement. Now, after I had built up enough lenders and enough capital, I was like, okay, now I've got this extra money that I can go invest in other things. And so, at this point, I've got about 30 doors.
Nice.
I bought a little apartment here in Vegas. It's a 10-plex. It's pretty cool. We're renovating it now. I got a good seller finance deal on it.
Nice.
But my bread and butter, which a lot of people always ask me about, is my Airbnbs.
Okay.
And, so I mentioned I'm buying Airbnbs in Big Bear, and I've got 5 of them right now. I want to buy a few more this year because, they're such big money makers compared to like really any other type of traditional rental.
Yeah.
And I love them because I can go use them and, go on vacation, write it off, have a good time. And I just love them, man. The cash flow is insane on them. So yeah, I kind of, to be honest, like this year, I'm not like looking to go like, hey, I'm going to go buy a 50 unit apartment complex.
Right.
Like that's not on my radar. If it happens, cool. But, the rentals have kind of just been something like, hey, when they pop up and they make sense, I'll buy them.
There you go. Yeah. And I'm just because Airbnb can be done lots of ways. I'm guessing you're doing dailies, maybe 3-day minimums, or do weeklies, or is that which one?
No. So up there, we do daily. Like there's a 1-day minimum on weekdays, and then there's a 2-day minimum on the weekends. And, man, the numbers are crazy. I would say, I've posted on Instagram before, but like, 5 houses brought in 30 grand last month. And, it's probably my nut on them is like 6 grand in mortgage. Mm-hmm. So, factor in all the other expenses, but they kill it.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate what you do. Thank you for your time. Hopefully people go out and buy your book because it will help them. It's helped me. But I always turn over at the end to the guest where you can share whatever you'd like. So please go ahead.
Man, no, just thank you for having me on. I appreciate you reaching out. And, I think for me too, that's kind of what's led to my success is not being scared to go and reach out to a stranger. Right. And you just never really know what kind of relationship's going to be formed, how it's going to benefit each other. And so I would say my big thing that I stress to all my agents and anybody I talk to is like, hey, go network. It talks about it in the book too, like networking is probably the most important thing you can do in this business because, a lot of times it's not really what you know, but it's who you know. And if you know the right guy, the right wholesaler, the right contractor, the right money guy, that's what can take you to another level. You got a guy like you who has so much experience in rentals, now I'm gonna pick your brain. And, when I got a deal going on with a rental, I'm gonna say, well, what am I missing here? Because you know a lot more than me about this. So what do I need to look for? So it's all about networking.
Yeah. I say this a lot and I'll keep saying it. Real estate investing is a people business first and foremost. I see too many people living inside Excel or living inside realtor.com or Redfin or whatever it is. Get out and meet people. It's a contact sport. Go make some contacts.
Yeah. And I know too, there's 2 types of people, right? You've got a data-driven person who wants to, make everything automized and systematized, and that's great. And then you got the other side who's like old school relationships and yada yada yada. And I kind of fall on that side. I'm not a big data guy, whatever. We definitely have systems and things we do, but I let somebody else handle that crap. I want to go I want to be meeting people and developing relationships. And that's what's got me to where I'm at today. And that's where it's going to get me to where I'm at tomorrow. You know, if you're trying to go meet, big players, they're not going to be impressed by looking at your spreadsheets. They're going to be impressed meeting you face to face and seeing like what kind of guy you are.
Exactly. Very, very cool. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for giving your time today. This was very good interview. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
You got it.